We've got some very, very bright minds in the room with us, and three of which are people on the stage with us right now. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to spend half an hour and leave the lights on and try to have a little bit of a discussion with Sherelle as well, who'll keep an eye on your tweets if you're nervous to speak with a microphone. Make sure you participate online, and we'll ask your questions to the panelists. But we thought maybe we could revisit some of the challenges and issues that have been raised through the day and through the different presentations. So we already know who Chris is, and we've met Frank earlier today as well, but I'll just quickly introduce William Price, who is the Global Digital Director for South African Tourism.
That sounds beautiful when you say it, but online guy is fine.
Online guy. William is the online guy in South African Tourism, and he's joined us all the way from Johannesburg, so thank you for coming, and thank you all for putting presentations together. We get to hear from you tomorrow, William, so it's very exciting. But since we have you all here, I thought we could start with an easy question, and I'll throw it to the panel. Perhaps each of you want to say a few words on this one. How is social media viewed by your colleagues in your own departments, in different departments, and perhaps by your stakeholders or CEOs in each of your organisations?
I would say that social media at Tourism and Events Queensland is viewed as Facebook. There is very little understanding beyond that channel of what social media is and could be.
And would you say that's across the board?
I would think so. I think that most people just think, I've just got to get this post on Facebook, and then that's a box ticked in terms of my campaign or my advertising activity. But what we're trying to do is change that to be more about what's a bit of content that can be shared across each of the channels, and actually may not go out on any channels if it's not right for that platform.
Will any different in South Africa?
I think it's still seen as a threat. People don't understand it, and I think the easier it is for them to put a handle on it, as in, okay, they'll continue doing what they're doing over there, we'll continue doing what you're doing over here. That's the way that it's the easiest for them to manage. So trying to explain to them the difference between a like and a post and a friend, and engagement and return on investment, that's overkill.
For those of you from destinations in the audience, would you say that's a pretty sort of common representation of where we're at? Would anyone say that they're in a totally different position to that? So Frank, what would your advice be on how to start to change that?
Well, I see a great evolution among our partners in 5-6 years, and I think it's accepted widely that we should invest in social media. But hey, that is the word, to invest. There is a sort of thinking that social media is cheaper, so it's a cheaper kind of marketing, and it's not true. There is no such a thing as a free lunch. But it's a shift. You need more staff, you need more people that get involved. So in our company there is a shift from budgeting marketing campaign money to attracting more people to work for us on a consultancy basis. So that's one of the threats, I think, for social media. And the second is that people who are working in social media will be put somewhere in a corner of the organization on a very operational level. And then you have the chief, and then you have the CEO, then you have the chief marketing officer, and then you have the communication officer, and then you have the digital officer who has to report to 4 other people, and then you can't do anything. And that's very important. And we have to evangelize that in Belgium, and to play that role of being a conversational leader, I think.
What sort of things have you had success with in terms of evangelizing?
Yeah, we have been talking about that yesterday already, how 4 years ago when I arrived at Visit Flanders, there was a guy called Thomas, and it was really far ahead of his time. He was thinking about social media. And the CEO was not convinced at all, because what are the partners going to say? What will the stakeholders say? And he's a friend of mine, Peter, and I said to him, okay, here's your argument. The big boss of MBTC in Holland, he's tweeting all the time. And he said, yeah, is that true? And he looked it up, oh yeah, then I have to tweet myself. And that's the leverage point there. It started, it's stupid, I know, but these things you have to seek these entrances, and then you can start.
So, William and Chris, I think you've probably summarised quite well, what we've seen with destinations all over the world. In your opinions, from where you sit, and you obviously have quite a high-level view on the change that's happening. Coming back to a topic that Sherelle picked up earlier, would you say that the role of advertising, do you think DMOs will always be doing this? I know you have very different opinions, and it'd be good to come back to that conversation. So if you could peer 3 or 5 years down the track, do you think destinations and tourism boards around the world will be doing advertising in the sense of traditional, broad advertising?
Well, I still believe very firmly in a good marketing mix. I think what we now call offline advertising, for want of a better phrase, will change significantly between now and say 5 and 10 years' time. I'm looking forward to a time when some of the billboards have got some type of interactivity built into them that can bring a digital element to those. I still think, and I think William or whoever made the point earlier, the point about travel agencies, we've been saying, travel agencies will die. Well, travel agencies aren't dying. Travel agencies are finding ways to adopt and adapt, and I think that will happen with other forms of advertising. I definitely think that there'll be significant shifts to digital. I think that we're already, if other brands haven't realised it, I unfortunately think we're past the time of looking at Facebook groups as purely as a community. I think they start as a community, but they're now very definitely media channels. And I think we're just in a position where we do need to now put money behind the content that we're publishing. I don't see offline advertising going away. I think it'll change.
So that's a great segue into an issue that's very topical and has been touched on a few times. But what do you think happens in 2015 when there is no more organic reach for your fan page, or or it's so negligible that you have to advertise? What do you guys think will happen next year?
Well, I think it's difficult to predict. I mean, if you look at what Pinterest is doing now in the travel segment, I mean, there's every indication that we're going to have new platforms coming out in the next 3 to 4 years. People are going to use technology differently to what they have in the last 5 years, and it's up to us to make sure that we keep up with the pace of how those changes change. So for me, it's not so much about what are we going to carry on and what are we going to kind of nurture through the change. It's about who does it best and who does it with the shortest period of time to get things to market. And I loved what Helen was saying earlier about you can't wait 4 years for the thing to be right. You have to be able to launch it and make those small course corrections as you go. You have to be able to experiment. You have to be agile. That's what's expected of us more and more. And unfortunately for us, as Frank was saying earlier, the way the organizations are structured, it's not about agility at all. It's very much around control and restriction and brand. And the sooner we realize that we have to unleash, we have to be able to find the great content, amplify it, work with the amazing content that's being provided by the travelers, the sooner we're going to be able to see where things really need to be going.
Is there anyone in the audience that plans on sort of giving up on Facebook once they have to pay for the reach? Is there anyone who's had those conversations? Is it a tough thing to have been spending 4 or 5 years maybe evangelising Facebook to senior management and how great value it is, and then have that turned around? Is that a challenge you've thought about or faced?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is not just on advertising spend, but in terms of building apps and the advertising and the effort. But over the last 5 years, we would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of time and effort and actual cash in building up that audience, and we see it as a really valuable audience. But unfortunately, Rodney, that's the way it is. Digital things change, and you just have to adapt and move on, and dust yourself off and keep going.
Frank, do you agree?
Yes and no. I believe that advertisement, the only role it really will have in the future is when there is a call to action. But on the inspirational level, I don't see a big role anymore for advertisement. So that's one thing. On the other thing, there is also the cliche that if you defend conversational strategies, oh yes, and where is the trade and where is the business and where is the conversion of money? hey, I'm a strong believer of sales calls, of course, but your offline story and your online story should be one flow. You should, and we are structured like William said, that the sales department was totally different from the marketing department, and they're doing their things, and that's the theoretical part, the marketing, and then the marketing was coming with their big plans. No, it should be one flow, and the story that is told physically by someone who is advocating your destination should be the same as you have on Facebook and all kinds of platforms you are trying to inspire people. That's the whole story for me.
So to each of you, given what you said about the perceptions within your organisations of social and what you've just told us about the structure of destinations, which I think most people can probably identify with, do you think there's a future for destination marketing organisations if they don't change their focus?
Absolutely. We are transforming ourselves. I see a much bigger role in becoming a sort of conversation leader for your destination. Then what does it mean, destination marketing organization? I'm writing an article now with a colleague of mine at university, which is called The End of Marketing, because the word marketing, getting the market, is maybe wrong, but what we are doing in a long-tail model nowadays is giving something to the marketing. I heard this morning the word curating, which is totally different than selling stuff. You've seen the example of the World War I. There was a tremendous organic growth we didn't expect. It's just offering something to people. And in the end, maybe there is some conversion. That's what all the big systems like Facebook and Twitter try to do. They give something free for people, and in the end, they try to converse on money. And I can't predict the future where that goes.
William and Chris, do we have consensus on our panel, or do you have anything to add to that about the future?
Well, I certainly think DMOs would need to, with their advertising, with their marketing, will need to change. I think that we will become less about advertising campaigns and more about marketing and conversation and content curation. But there's a lot of other things as a DMO that we do, product development, industry development, and all those other type of programs. And maybe that's where some of that emphasis becomes. But if DMOs don't change the way that we're engaging now, then I don't know that they'll close down, but they'll become irrelevant pretty quickly.
And William?
Yeah, look, I think DMOs are desperately stupid. And until we reinvent it and make it more specific to what needs to be done, and that can only be understood when you understand the consumer or the traveller better. We're so good about trying to get our process and our structures to work the way that we've laboured painstakingly to get it to work, that we've completely forgotten that there's an audience out there that's moving a lot quicker, paying attention to other things that's not important to us at all, and all we try and do is fit within the mold that we've created ourselves. So we have to reinvent, and I'd be very grateful if we didn't call it a DMO after that reinvention process.
It's a good opportunity to start picking on people, and I wanted Heidi.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
I wanted to answer your question that you were asked earlier on, but you just kept talking.
Well, I'll just say that.
I want to marry you, William. If it weren't for already I'm married and you are too, because we have a lot of the same thoughts. I think we have to reinvent DMO and we have to get rid of that name. You asked the question about Facebook. Are we going to leave Facebook when we have to pay for it? I think it's very simple. We need to be where the customers are. And if there is people on Facebook having a conversation, we need to be there. And I think for us as a small DMO, hopefully called something else within 5 years, we will always see where are the customers, and we need to be there and we have to interact with them there more than where we pay ads. And if there's a lot of customers in our target group on Facebook, we will be willing to pay to be on Facebook, I think.
I'm happy to accept the proposal. Happy to accept your marriage proposal.
Yeah, you are. Great. We can have a distance marriage, I think.
Can someone tweet this?
What did you ask actually?
The actual question
Yes.
Was, will DMOs still be relevant if they don't change their focus away from a more mass approach?
Very leading question. No. I would really like to also have some point of views on the business model for the DMOs, because if we are going to change the way we work, and I think everybody here in the conference are looking into a new way of thinking marketing, But we still, most of us have business models based on the old-fashioned way of thinking marketing. And that business model doesn't change itself. So in my case, we are working in a new way with an old-fashioned business model. It's going to work for a while, but then suddenly it's going to collapse. So I need a new business model before I leave here on Friday morning.
It would be interesting, Sherelle, to get your opinion from Amsterdam's perspective as well. How are these conversations happening within your organisation?
We're knee deep in partnerships, and I know Amsterdam marketing hasn't figured out their business model either. For social media, we're actually doing a pretty good job in ignoring our sales department, who says you need to tweet about this person and you need to tweet about that person, which also is something else connected to this entire story. We might be just catching up on this whole online and social wave. But all the people that we work with, the industry, they're even behind us. And on the one hand, our own organizations don't necessarily understand social media. My partners certainly don't understand it because they have these strange and immense expectations of what one of my posts will do. Because we have a Facebook community of about 450,000 people. And they expect magic. So they're constantly knocking at my door saying, please post, and actually get very angry if I actually don't do that. And I don't because it's about the community, not about my partners. But I'm also wondering, for everybody else, how about partners? Are they with you? Are they on it? Can they keep up?
That's a very interesting question because I mentioned that we need a new planning model. We are shifting from the typically authority stuff, the year planning. No, we need project planning. We have new budgeting, so there is no flexibility in budget. So we smuggle in now flexibility and agility. We need a new partner model. And I was talking to someone an hour ago that the classic tourist people are a bit suspicious that we have need of concrete partners. Could be people, historians for the World War I things, festivals and so on. And that's a funny thing. And we're structured in Belgium. There is no Belgium National Tourist Office. So there is Flanders, is Wallonia. And then we have the cities. And the problem of working with the cities is they are tourist offices and they have city marketing offices. They are separated. There is no such thing as a sort of city or regional marketing thing. So Visit Flanders has to take up that role, and we're doing a lot about social tourism. We are investing in stones and in money, social programs and so on. You see the difference, and I think that in the end it will all merge, and that there should be a sort of broker that builds that relationships. You need a connector basically. So that's far away of the classic DMO thinking, and I know that for some people they say, oh, it is like a fantasy world. I don't think so.
So a very deep, reflective question that's probably, will be different for each of you. But, assuming, Chris, I know you've been at TEQ for going on 20 years now, and William, you've been at South Africa for quite a while, and Frank, you've been in the business a long time too. But assuming you're all in your current roles for the next 3 years, what would you like to be able to look back on in 3 years and have achieved within your organisation? Where would you like your organisation to be if you looked back in 3 years? Chris?
I think the point from Frank's presentation is a brilliant one. I want to look back in 3 years and be able to say that the organisation is one that does digital well, that we're not an organisation who has a good digital team. There's 140 people that work at Tourism and Events Queensland all over the world, and 11 of those in digital. Imagine how much better job we could be doing if all of those people understood digital and were actively engaged and not just one part of the organisation.
What sort of things are you doing to try and encourage that already? Was it Frank's presentation that was the catalyst for that thought, or have you been thinking along those lines a lot?
No, we've been doing little things within the organisation. So we quite regularly have reps from the likes of Google and Facebook and those type of companies come in and do presentations, and when we invite them in, it's an all TQ meeting. We invite everyone, so the receptionists, finance, the digital people, we're all in the room together learning about it. Sos Matson, who's part of our team, she's brilliant at getting people engaged, and she has quite often organises a TEQ walkabout, which is basically a way of teaching people about Instagram and how to use it. So she'll take them on a tour to something that'll be happening and encourage them to take photos and share them. So we're trying to do some of those grassroots level things, but the problem at the moment is that it's a very small, select group of the same people who come along.
And where would you be proud to have South African tourism in 3 years?
Well, I think since you've asked for a very deep and meaningful response, it does get deep and meaningful in tourism, especially in South Africa, because one of our 6 business objectives is to transform the industry. And when we do a good enough job of transforming the industry, it actually results in poverty alleviation, and it results in job creation. And that's a very big thing for us, because that really takes the work that we do from a digital point of view and from a social and from a messaging and curation and all that kind of stuff, and actually brings it home to something very practical in being able to put people in housing that has running water and proper sewage and that kind of stuff. So that's ultimately for us where the arrivals end up in job creation. The arrivals end up in better life for people in South Africa, and that's difficult because you don't always see that on a day-to-day basis. So very often you've got to remind yourself that the job that you do by trying to attract people to come to South Africa actually has that kind of impact on the economy. So that's something that makes you feel proud. And you know, there's a lot that could be said about working for your country, but when you see that kind of stuff, that's all the other stuff becomes fluff.
It's very real. It's probably a good perspective for a lot of us in here as well. Frank, where would you like to leave your mark?
Of course, I dream of rebuilding the Starship Enterprise and to boldly go where no one has gone before. I think we have to do the first thing, and that's personal ambition. I would like to have a new organizational culture. We are on the way, and we have to finish that. It's about a motivation of people, intrinsic motivation, and to do that you have to restructure your whole organization. For the moment, that is something you have to convince and to lobby for. The second thing is that you have to make the point that social media and conversational management requires a lot of discipline. You really need the discipline of a samurai. Maybe someone of you have heard of Gary Vaynerchuk in the United States. That man has been tweeting and Facebooking for years and years, and suddenly he's a big star and his wine shop is booming. That's one of the things you really have to be aware of in social media. And the third thing I really want to see, together with all the partners, that we make a priority of tourism in Belgium. There is still a gold mine there in Flanders that has not been digged out. And about job creation, we got a demand of the Japanese, and they seem to be very interested in visiting places where there is a lot of attention for creative industries. We have them. We have the fashion people, the game developers, and so on. But nobody thinks that might have any interest for a visitor. So in our new business plan, we don't speak about tourists anymore. We speak about visitors. So we try to broaden the scope there again.
So there's been a lot of talk about the relevance of DMOs and the need to shift focus a little bit. And Heidi needs us to write a new business case before Friday. If it's widely acknowledged that there is this challenge, what would you say have been the barriers in your experiences to more rapid change? What things stop innovation?
Well, I think there are many things. One of the barriers that we find is that we ultimately report to a government, to politics and politicians. Our budget is provided on an annual basis rather than having too much visibility into a few years, which will allow us to develop up programs. And it's also then evolves around the political, around elections, excuse me. So it's over a 3-year period or whatever it is. But I think one of the things that does hold us back is that we're working with small tourism businesses who are, I can't remember what the statistics are, but it's a huge proportion of our industry who are small enterprise. They're one or two or half a dozen people who are very busy running a business, and they're not really having the time to work on their business rather than at the business. What we've found is that when we're able to move on to the bigger, more creative things, then there is a spurt in innovation, that there is a burst of activity. But quite often, we get held back by the lowest common denominator.
William, what are the things that hold you back?
People. I think it's a people thing. I think the fear that people have to change, the fact that they want to keep doing what they've set out to do because they've got pride and ego and that kind of stuff, that's what we really encounter most often, is the roadblocks or the difficulties that we have to kind of circumvent. And I mean, politicians have their own special breed of those types of problems, but as much as you have the politicians, you have your people that you are managing, you have the people that you're trying to manage up to. So I think if we could build the Starship Enterprise, I'd be Captain driving that one. I think it's
I
people.
want to be Mr. Spock.
Frank, the $1 million question. How do you get an organisation that's fundamentally political over its sphere of change?
Leadership, maybe. Leadership is very important. We need people that dare to question themselves. Entrepreneurship is very important. I think that's not a secret. We struggle with that in Europe. We encourage people too much to live from subsidiary money. I think we have to do some incentives there. And of course, one of the things that really holds us back is over-regulation. That's really, I don't know whether it's in the rest of Europe the same, but it's really a disease in Europe. So I'm a strong leader for deregulation. For instance, now there is a big fear for Airbnb, and we should stop it and we should forbid it in Belgium. The same for couch surfing. Come on, how can you stop that in a globalized world? But there is a strong demand of people who are influential in tourism. They say you should stop that as the DMO, the authorities. And I think it should be just the other side. We have to say we go for quality, we promote quality, and we're going to make you better. And we should not compete to globalized tendencies. That's so stupid,
So when the Netherlands Board of Tourism partnered with Airbnb, did that send a little ripple down south? Did people take notice?
Yeah, they partnered with Airbnb, but then the city of Amsterdam decided to do a number of bans on social travel. And I know this because I'm with Housetrip, which is a social travel company. And we met with the Amsterdam Board of Tourism, who said to us, to our faces, that they wanted to work with us, and then 2 weeks later put in laws banning the practice.
Uh-oh.
How do you use your
When was this? Because I've only been working there for a year.
It was October.
It was October. Oh, damn it, I was there. Well, there are two things, and maybe also one of the reasons why we have a different logo than the city, the government, is that they decide on policy and we kind of don't, we just advise them.
I should add, it wasn't with I Amsterdam, it was with the city.
Okay, much better. Still a problem, but I know in Amsterdam there's lots of offerings on Airbnb or similar websites, because Airbnb is the biggest one, but there are lots of them, and we're going to hear about it sometime soon.
And you're not in Paris, Berlin, New York City,
New York, definitely.
San Francisco, all of these cities saying that they want to do social travel, which is the new wave that they want to capture, and all of them putting in laws banning the practice.
All I can say is that in Amsterdam the hotel lobby is huge. And don't quote me on that, but they're the biggest babies in Amsterdam. And instead of looking at their own business model and trying to add value and therefore make sure that they get their customers back, they focus on trying to ban some of the other initiatives. And like it's mentioned, it's not the case. You cannot prevent this stuff from happening. So it's the tourism world needs to adapt and change to the new world, and not vice versa. And in that sense, because I think we have only a few minutes left, Heidi still needs a new business model. So I'm not sure whether she has enough ideas, but I'm also not necessarily sure that we need to shift away from DMO, because I actually believe that most of us aren't DMOs at all, not yet. If I actually listen to the stories on stage, if I listen to Peter's story, destination marketing organization says nothing solely about tourism. It's a way broader initiative. So I feel we actually have a long way to go. But the thing that we might want to look into is broadening our scope and not just look at tourism, but look at housing, look at jobs, look at education, and see what you, in that sense, can do for your city or your region. And I feel it's more important than to shift that strategy that in Eindhoven has been so clearly chosen, that's the way forward. And that will ultimately prove at DMO's value. So maybe that's something that Heidi can look into if she's not doing that already. But maybe some final comments and thoughts from the panel before we move to the final presentation.
Yeah, I just want to add, look at what Tomorrowland does in Flanders. Look at what Disneyland does. Every part of the chain, every part of the customer journey is almost perfect, and that's your best marketing you can do. And you can't do that as a tourist organization. That's something that you need to do with your whole society. That maybe someone can take up the role to give people the look as to see ourselves as others see us, and to do that mirror thing, and then say, hey, these are the weak spots, and there we have to improve. Yeah.
Is there anyone in the audience who has a burning question for our three people on stage?
Hi. Talking about the new world in tourism, I'm coming from Argentina, that's from South America, the other side of the world. And I was curious because I was just arguing about something that we don't have many knowledge about the social media tourism in Argentina, for example, and I think it's general in South America. How to educate, for example, the new professional, because I'm studying tourism, the new professional incoming in the industry about the social media tourism, because in Europe, Australia, and other parts of the world, it's a very grown industry, but we need more. We need to develop in South America. For example, I'm questioning myself how to help to the new professional about this, how to educate us, because we will bring this knowledge to the other side, to the new generation about tourism. And I would like to know more about this, because I now that I have the opportunity to listen to you, because I'm studying in Rovaniemi, but there are not many people with this opportunity. So I would like to transmit this in my university, in my home university, with my friends. I would like to transmit about the social media, and I would like to know how to do it, how to transmit it to the new generation. Because it's not only about the visitors, it's also about the new professionals. Because of course for example, I need to understand the new minds of the new tourists, of the new visitors. Because I'm young, that the social media is of my society. Because we have more connection with Facebook, with Twitter, with all the new kind of social media ways. So it's interesting for me as young student how to enter in this new world and how to understand this. I would like, if you can explain me, it would be an amazing experience for me to listen to you.
So, does anyone have any advice on how to evangelize social and digital within the tourism industry?
Yeah, I guess we've really changed our approach over the last couple of years. Instead of being not aggressive, but instead of being always talking about increasing spend in digital and pushing digital at every opportunity, it's more about how we as people within the organisation can provide a solution to whatever the problems or challenges are. Going back, one of the past directors of the digital marketing team at TEQ was always, we've got to get 30% of advertising spend, 30% of advertising spend, and I don't really care what the advertising spend is. I don't care if it's 5%, I don't care if it's 100%. What I care about is that digital's involved in the conversation and that we're part of the solution that's being delivered. And if we can prove value in the platforms or the things, whatever it is that we've got, then that's when all of that other stuff will happen. The organisational pickup will happen, the understanding around digital, and people will start to see how digital can become part of the solution. It's not, I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you all very much for joining us and for sharing your ideas, and we can continue the conversation, through the day, through the evening and tomorrow. So thanks very much.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.